In the last tutorial, I showed you how to track a camera in Fusion. Today, we're going to take that camera data and do something really cool with it: camera projection. This is a powerful technique for tasks like painting out unwanted objects, such as this stain on the floor, or adding elements like graffiti to a scene. We'll dive into a bit more technical detail, so you'll need a basic understanding of Fusion to follow along. Let's start by removing this stain from the floor. First, we need to create a plane that matches the surface. You can either use an image plane, connect it to your merge node, and position it manually. Or, if you're using a point cloud, you can right-click on a point and create the image plane directly from there. Once that's set, remove the merge node and connect the image plane to your 3D merge. If the plane looks off, it's likely because the point cloud isn't perfectly aligned. In my case, I'll adjust the transform settings. Set X to make it as 90 degrees, Y to 90 degrees, and Z to 0. This should roughly place the image plane where the stain is. Scale it up a bit, let's say 8 units, so it covers the entire stain. Next, we'll project the footage onto this plane. It's important to choose a good frame for projection, ideally from the middle of the sequence to avoid distortion. I'll go with frame 95. We'll duplicate the camera to create our projection camera. Unlock it and clear all keyframes so it stays static. This way, we have a moving main camera and a stationary projection camera. Next, we need to connect our projection camera to the Merge 3D node. We'll also connect the camera's image input to the plate. This opens up more options inside the camera settings. First, let's disable the image plane by unchecking Enable Image Plane. Then, under the Projection tab, click Enable Camera Projection to activate the projection and set the projection mode to Texture. At this point, nothing changes because Fusion doesn't yet know which object to project onto. That's where the Catch node comes in. We'll connect the material input to the Catch node, and now Fusion will project our plate onto the image plane. You'll be able to see this more clearly in the 3D view. However, since we're working with video, we need to freeze the frame we're projecting. I'll add a time speed node, set its speed to 0, and hold frame 95 by adding a 95 frame delay. At this point, you should see the stain projected onto the image plane. Let's make this more visible by coloring the plane pink. The next step is to remove the stain from the floor. Let's go to frame 95 and add a paint node to target the stain. In the Paint node, select the Stroke tool, and under Apply mode, choose Clone. Now we can simply clone out the stain. Since we don't need the entire plane covered, we'll define the area to replace using a polygon mask. To do that, add a polygon node and start masking around the patch area. Then, pipe the polygon mask into the Merge node and switch the operation to Mask. Now we're left with just the patch. To finish, merge the patch back into the scene. The last step is to soften the edges. I prefer using a blur node after the polygon, as it gives better control within the node tree. If your patch looks blurry, switch the render type in the 3D render node to software render, which should sharpen it up. As lighting changes over the sequence, you'll want to color correct the patch to match. For this tutorial, though, I'll leave it as is and focus on the projection technique. If you notice the patch sliding, check the alignment of your image plane or the camera solve. It's likely one of those causing the issue. Next, I'm going to show you a similar technique, but this time we'll be adding elements to the scene instead of removing them. Let's take a look at our scene from the Merge 3D node. First, we need to select a few points from the point cloud on this column so we can accurately position our image plane. Once we've done that, right-click and select Image Plane. Position the image plane where we need it, and don't forget to delete the extra Merge 3D node. Now, let's resize the image plane to cover the column and move it up slightly. There we go. This image plane will serve as the projection surface for the column. We'll need a camera for the projection. Since we already have one in the node graph and we're using the same projection frame, there's no need to add another. As before, we need to tell Fusion which object to project onto. We'll connect the image plane to the catch node, and now it's projecting frame 95 from our projection camera onto the image plane. What can we do with this setup? Let's turn off the point cloud so we can see things more clearly. For example, if we want to add graffiti to the column, we can do that using an image or text. I'm going to use a text node for this. I prefer to handle text transformations with a separate transform node rather than the built-in transform inside the text node. This gives me better control and lets me toggle it on and off easily in the node graph. Let's change the text color to dark red. Then we'll branch out from the flow and add a luma keyer. By checking the alpha channel in the luma keyer, we can create more contrast. Masking the graffiti with the luma keyer will help blend the text or image into the background more naturally. Now, if we view our scene through the Render 3D node, this is what we've got. Don't forget to mask the new graffiti back into the flow using another polygon node. Let's quickly recap what we did. In the previous video, we started by tracking the camera. The camera solve gave us this 3D setup, and from the point cloud, we were able to position the patches for both the floor and the column. We created two image planes, one for the column and one for the floor, and connected them to the catch node. Then we duplicated the camera and locked it to frame 95, using a time speed node to freeze the frame. We did our compositing here, removing the stain and integrating new elements. Below the Render 3D node, we used merge and polygon nodes to mask out specific areas, and finally merged everything with our background. And here's the final result. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions or want more information. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Fusion tips. Thanks so much for watching.